Good morning, everybody. Welcome to My Stoic Circus Virtues, People, and What Are You Looking At? Episode 6. We're going to talk about what are the characteristics and things that how you characterize yourself, the people you hold company with, and what can you do better about it to improve your circle of influence. All right, and let's get started here in just a moment. Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, whatever it is in your part of the world. And welcome to My Stoic Circus. I'm Jason B, aka 72 the Architect. And I've made many different episodes and I've talked about different aspects of using Stoicism philosophy, about how to improve your daily life and how to actually attack your obstacles, your problems, or issues. How can we improve our daily life? Now, the Stoics actually believe in a few things that are very standard for them to live in their daily lives, to have mindfulness and presence to be a very important part of their daily job. That's right. And what is their job? To live their best lives. Now, today we're going to talk about virtues, and the Stoic virtues consist of temperance, justice, wisdom, and there's another one I keep forgetting. Oh, and courage. These are four important principles of daily living, but how do we actually increase the volume and the consistency of all that? By looking at, let's just say, people that we're around. It's not just good enough that you're around successful people or well-disciplined people. You're going to have to take some actions. But how can we actually identify those that we actually are deeming as, wow, these are strong, good, good moral character and action, or I can consistently perform with? So first, let me start off with a few individual types that you've got to be mindful of. And I got this when I was watching TikTok, and someone was putting, like, I think it was like mindful training, and I really identified with what that was actually saying. And there were five distinctive personality types or characteristics in people that you've got to take notice of. And I wrote some of the notes about these things as it was published, and the first one was negativity spreaders. That's right. These are people who spread constant gossip, reporting on situations on others. These people constantly exude pessimism. And what is pessimism? Well, it's pessimism is defined as a tendency to see the worst aspect of things and believe the worst that will happen. Lack of hope and confidence in the future. But see, the one thing I will say about that, they're undercover pessimists. They will act like there's positive in lives, and a lot of times they're really constantly chipping away at positivity, and they're really implementing negativity. This happens all over. I know I'm guilty of it or have been guilty of it in my past. So when I look at what's in my sphere of influence, the people that I want to be around, what actually helps me become better and not just a gossiper is to look at the people that promote your successes and promote your good moral choices, being proud of you, complimenting you on authentic and relatable things, not on things of merit that just gains you just an advantage of. So I think that a belief that the world is bad, that it could be all coming to an end, is not the kind of person that I want to be around. But those people who are constantly talking about the news or talking about what this other person did, these are negativity spreaders. These are people that I do not want to be around and hold company with. Number two is the constant critics. Just like negativity spreaders, constant critics are unwarranted criticisms, critiques. They concern themselves on matters that don't really promote a good living or anything outside of their sphere of influence. They point their opinions at taking people down and, disagreeing. And matter of fact, just the other day, I was holding a space where people were saying, oh, well, the worst kind of male examples are individuals like Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson. And I went on the attack And I basically said, so what is your evidence, that why you hold this opinion? And their recollection was, well, because they own websites that take advantage of women. And I'm like, okay, now when you say that, I further asked more questions. But the more that I dug, they lacked the support of their opinion, just basically going off of the hearsay. So these constant people, these constant critics who, say that of other people, they're not promoting anything to replace it with. They gave nothing about good masculine traded men who show a good example in living life, because that's really what the subject matter was all about. So I really try to steer clear of those individuals and being mindful of actually actuating yourself to them is not going to do you any good, right? So the next on, we need to really look at the third one is self-centered individuals. Now, these are individuals who do not focus on relationships. They are only focused on themselves and invite themselves to accommodating situations for which they are highlighted. We constantly hear people, I've done it, and it's something that I've had to personally correct out of myself. If someone's telling me a whoa or a whim, what I used to do in the past is I would associate my experience to their experience, but not learning from them. You know, the action point about that is choose the individuals who choose relationships of mutual support and consideration. This is very, very important when we look at the sphere of influence of people. So we've got, just going over the five types, and I'm on number three, is look at the negative spreaders. That's the gossipers who just do no good, the constant critics, and the self-centered individuals. Next, we're going to go on to another very important um, uh, category of people, and these are joy robbers. These people are always going through the whims and woes. They are like the Eeyores. Oh, my life is so horrible. These people don't celebrate your success, nor do they care. They constantly sabotage themselves and any individual that they are around. Doesn't matter how positive, even in their own happiness. They choose to rob the joy by criticizing, pointing fingers, and doing things that don't truly matter. They do this so well that it's like, damn, do I really have to be around this person? More frequently than not, what I've experienced are these people, and I have been a joy robber myself, and identifying how I've done it was when I was going through unresolved traumas, I would actually bring more trouble to myself, not inviting good people or having good relationships, really, pointing myself at things that truly matter versus what doesn't matter. Joy robbers will say take like a beautiful sunny day and say it's such a horrible day because it's hot. Well, depending on your value, sometimes voicing out an opinion, and especially circumstances like that, may not be appropriate. Be mindful of your tongue. What others may enjoy, you may not. Maybe hold it back. The fifth one, about the people to be mindful to carry on your virtues, is manipulators. Now, this one is very broad. I mean, it could be very broad and can be very vague too at the same time. But what I've defined, and through my studies have led to me in my experience say that these are people who are driven with notions of advantages in mind only. They will use friendships, they will use trauma tracking actions, shame shame reminders, and anything that they possibly do to hold ticket over you. They will use shame as a constant reminder, like, oh, remember when you did this in a conversation and it's not productive or not giving you something really to think about. Because these people only look for advantages, remember, and there are constant people who are doing this. These are people who, especially in relationships that I've experienced, they've done it where, you're not all that. Who do you think you are? And that goes back to, in the beginning, look for people who celebrate your successes. It doesn't mean that your experience is bad. It doesn't mean that you know everything, but looking at the situation at hand, when you're having a conversation or holding a party or even holding space with family and relatives, make sure that it's encouraging, enlightening. If there does need to be correction because there's being things of misunderstanding, taking consideration of how you'd like to enjoy that part of the conversation, not diminishing your position. So now it goes back to what we were originally talking about, the virtues. That means the discipline. That means the character of the person and the tendency. I've heard this phrase, when you show me how you do one thing, it will show me how you do all things. I criticize that phrase because it's a casual phrase that people are not taking semantical advantages over. They're not really taking accountability. Just because I handle, say, like one thing and laziness doesn't mean that all other parts of my life do I take laziness. There are times where I'm hyper vigilant about certain issues, my appearance, my smile, my presence. I take really awareness about that. I also evaluate the language that I'm speaking, not only to myself, but to others. I don't want to negatively portray myself, which is kind of like the joy robbers. They will steal your situation away from you. I can remember in podcasts where I'd have people I call them show hijackers. They would add something a little positive, but then the rest of their momentum is negative. We have to constantly evaluate what that means to us. And so, you know, I really thought about, a good quote, even from Marcus Aurelius. And he basically said in his Meditations 3.61, he says, "Indeed, if you find anything in human life better than justice, truth, self control, and courage, in short, anything better than sufficiency of your own mind, which keeps you acting according to the demand of true reason and acceptance, what fate gives you outside of your own powers of choice?" I tell you, if you can see anything better than this, turn to it, your heart and soul, and take full advantage of the greater good you found. What does that basically mean? Well, just to take it apart, he uses the virtues right in the beginning. He says justice, truth, self control, which is temperance, right? And courage. That means daring to do the difference regardless of what other people think, the masses, or where you've come from. It's your life. You're going to make your own decisions. So how can you get better than that virtue? I think that a lot of us, we can enable ourselves of not seeking good virtue and good moral. We Many of us have forgotten that the independent spirit, the curiosity, the creativity does a lot for us, and sometimes the lack of doing it does more damage, for us at the same time. You have to be curious and willing to dare to be different. And what I notice in, say, like some of the platforms that I go into in Clubhouse, people like to trauma dump. They like to hurt other people, as they say, or they'll say passive statements. How show me how you do one thing is show me how you do others. Or the other, show me five people that you're around and I'll show you exactly who you are. I agree and I disagree at the same time because it shows the tendencies of the people and the company that you hold. So, how do you improve it all? How do you make it better? What are you looking at? Well, after careful consideration of what I'm doing and how I'm doing things, I really have to think about what is my motive and where is the destination. Like right now, I haven't seen my family in about 5 days, and I miss them tremendously. But because I'm involved in a heavy study, an intensive project, I've had to separate myself, you know, regardless of what they need, but what I have to do to support them. But you know what the beautiful thing about all that is, because today, when I go back to them, I'm going to celebrate them. I'm going to appreciate them. I'm going to appreciate the circumstances. That is my virtue of discipline in place, knowing what is truly valuable, knowing what truly matters to me. I think that too many of us get distracted so very easily. And when we think about what distractions really are, then you start to narrow down your interests, your narrows of influence. And we look at those five stereotypes or types of people that do those things. We have capacity to do all those things. But if we're mindful and remind yourself, how am I actually adding to the situation? Am I learning from others? And are they learning from me? Can I be a learner and a listener more than a speaker? And nowadays, we constantly offer our opinions without backing. So being able to have that temperance, that self-control, maybe not reacting to what people say could actually better the situation and make you look better. That's something that I've had to constantly persist myself in. And why? Because the environments in which I grew up with created this alter ego where I didn't have necessarily my needs met. And I had to really understand what that meant for me. When I began to understand what was I doing and what my sphere of influence was and how I'm influencing others, then life really began to change. Life changes because you're willing to do the different things, the indifferent things, and the actions that matter most. Say, like wasting your time in trying to be a podcaster, but you don't know what message you're going to portray. That's one thing of like mindless work. Just because you're productive doesn't mean that you're being actually productive for a cause. Staying busy is not productive. So take time to sit with yourself. Take time to evaluate. Maybe you are or constantly persist in those 5 areas, which is negativity spreading. That means you're gossiping too much and complaining. Constant critics. That means you complain about things that don't matter, even when it doesn't concern you. Self-centered individuals. That means you're not interested in anyone else but yourself. Joy robbers. These are people that are just like constantly, they're in a funk, and all they do is they steal the joy of the situation away, or maybe ruin a party. They can constantly be like that. And then 5, the manipulators. These are people, and we've all been manipulators in some fashion or shape or form. I can't ever say that we haven't, because we have. Under careful consideration and microscopes, yeah, we've all manipulated something at some point. But it doesn't mean that we stay that way. I want to encourage better relationships, better choices. I want to have and see people around my sphere of influence to increase their vibration. What does that mean? Work through challenges, encouraging people like, hey, you can do it. And if they can't, what can I do to assist them? You know, Not taking their journey or their lessons away, but adding to their journey. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what this episode is all about. We have to think about, virtue is something of a constant reminder in all of our actions. And you will have to create disciplines and reminders. I put notes around my steering wheel or my dash of quotes to be mindful in my presence, to be considerate of other people's feelings. But it's like at the same time, don't sabotage my message just for convenience of others. That's where it gets sticky. And the reason why that I say it gets sticky is because people who allegedly want to stay in the truth, it's only a mere matter of the optics. How you see it, maybe not be how everyone else sees it, but how you see it can also be, and how you act it and how you enable it is like how you portray yourself without offering to offend or invite other people to do exactly what you're doing. You can be a good example with sometimes saying less or just being in good action, being in good character. Um, that's good for you. And I had a hard time with a lot of that, to say the least, because growing up, I grew up with religious trainings like Christianity and Catholicism, and even being involved with the Methodists and Baptists. I didn't really know what my moral compass was because I was still in my formative years. It wasn't until my 30s did I really take prime action on that. And when I understood of what the theologies did to me and how I believed, it allowed me to block it, or it actually gave me the ability to block out what was necessary and unnecessary to some degree. And then one day I was like, wait a second, if I'm blocking others because I'm purposely having a prejudice, is my character good and moral? That's where I began to fall in love with Stoicism. I began to fall in love with philosophy. I began to learn about how other people live and how they were trained and how their moral compass was probably a lot like mine. But without being discriminatory, I was open, accepting. I have a strong belief the more that we accept people and less trying to correct people or trying to influence people, we live better lives. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have obstacles. But the more that you accept things as they are, which the Stoicism is really based on, what can you accept in the now and do with what you have, not with what you have? And but yet you still have to appreciate skepticism in philosophy. Skepticism's very important. It helps formulate part of our discernment or our decision making, and then, it's like proof is in the pudding. But sometimes there has to be more than proof initially. There has to be the curiosity and the creativity. Anyhow, that's pretty much what I have for today. And in studio, I'm producing live on Clubhouse, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you're listening to those recordings, make sure that you subscribe, like, leave a comment. I would greatly appreciate that. And this is, my recording for the day. So hopefully share and like, let me know what you think. And I appreciate you for coming out, whether live audience or recorded. Well, we'll see y'all next time on my Stoic Circus. I'll be coming back on Saturday and talking about more. Make sure that you check out the previous episodes. And if you're curious when you do check out my content, you'll see Rise and Grind. That is a show that I used to do. So Rise and Grind has been upgraded to my Stoic Circus. And I hope that you've enjoyed. We'll see you all out there next time. Y'all have a great day. Take care.